If you were to ask the average young yeshiva student, boy, girl, maybe even a Beis Medrash fellow, young seminary person, if you could be a Jew, or you could be a public school kid, a regular Gentile, which lifestyle would offer you more pleasure? Not which would be more meaningful, not which you would prefer, but which lifestyle would offer you more pleasure? I believe the average young yeshiva student would say, what do you mean? Come on. I mean, listen, I know there's a purpose, I know there's a reason, and I know Hashem wants me to live this way, and I'll gladly do it. But there's no question, if I were a public school kid, no rules, wow, it would be amazing. All the pleasure, do what I want. It would be just unbelievable. And I'd like to share with you that if it were true, let's assume for a minute that it were true, that living a life of the Torah wants us to was austere and was difficult, and if we could leave it, we'd have this amazing amounts of pleasure and enjoyment. It would well be worth it. Why? Because we were created for the world to come. There are but a few short years that we're here. And even if it were true that life here would be difficult and austere, black and just plain, it would be well worth it for the world to come. However, that's not at all the exchange. The Torah does not ask us at all to live a life without pleasure. The Torah does not ask us to live a sort of plain vanilla, just be a monk, go up there into the mountains and live alone. Quite the opposite. I would like to share with you that living a Torah lifestyle is the most joyful, most happy, but far more eye-opening, the most pleasurable. But when I say pleasurable, I don't mean, sort of ethereal or sort of emotionally. I mean physical, sensual pleasures. I guarantee that if you lead the life the way the Torah wants us to and really grow, really accomplish, you'll have more physical, sensual pleasures than you will have in any other lifestyle. And we're going to spend some time in this session describing why that is true. But I'd like, before we do that, to make one more little point, and that is, forget young people. I think adults as well. Ask someone 35, 45, someone who's very learned even, ask them the following question. Pleasures from a Torah perspective, what should our attitude be? So I'm pretty sure that you'll get sort of I guess pleasures, they're not really good, they're not really bad, but I'm not really sure. And this question is the Torah for pleasures, against pleasures, mediocre, in the middle. What's our stance is something that can be a bit confusing. Now, the truth be told, there's reason for the confusion, and I'm going to spend a moment or two just going through some common Gemaras, well-known Gemaras, because that'll point out clearly the contradiction. Kedoshim tiyu. What does it mean to be holy? Perushim. Separate yourself from desire, separate yourself from earthly pleasures. Tzaddik ochel asovel nafsho. A tzaddik only eats to satisfy what he barely needs. More than that. Kol yoshev b'tainis nikra kodesh. If a person willingly takes on a fast, he's holy. He's holy. Now, obviously, that seems to indicate that pleasures are something you should avoid. Austere, very, very plain is the way to be. Yet, it doesn't take a great amount of learning to recognize that quite the opposite is true. Asid adam litain din lifnei hamakam. A person will have to stand judgment in front of Hashem. Al kol ma shero einav, everything that his eyes saw, v'lo ratza lechol mimenu, and he did not want to eat from it if it was permitted. It's a Gemara in Yerushalmi. The Gemara tells us clearly, Gemara in Yerushalmi Kedushin tells us that a person will have to answer. Hashem says, I created delicious foods, apples, oranges, bananas. Your eyes saw it. Your soul is delicious. Why didn't you want to enjoy it? It was permitted. And if you don't take the enjoyment, there's going to be a claim against you. Furthermore, it's not sufficient that which the Torah forbid. You have to add on to it. And finally, what we'll call the absolute contradiction, whoever sits in a fast, nikra chote, is called a sinner. Now, if that's not a contradiction, I don't know what it is. The earlier Gemara said whoever sits in a fast is considered a holy person. Now you're telling me whoever sits voluntarily in a fast is a sinner. That sounds like a contradiction, And again, I believe that it's because there are conflicting examples brought by the Rishonim, brought by the Gemara. That's why there's a lot of confusion. And I'd like to spend some time now clearly defining the Torah's attitude towards pleasure, the Torah's attitude towards these activities, and let's see if we can get a better understanding. And to do that, let's begin with a mashal. Imagine that you're on a boat, and the boat capsizes, and you find yourself shipwrecked on a deserted island. No one there. It's the South Pacific. You see the coconut trees, but there are no coconuts. There is no food on the island. You're famished. You walk and you walk and you walk. You finally fall asleep. And you walk some more. There's nothing to be eaten there. Nothing. Finally, after 3 days, under a tree, you see a bag, a brown paper bag, and you open it. And inside is a peanut butter sandwich that's been baking in the sun for 6 months. You're so hungry. You're famished. You just wolf it down faster than you ate anything else ever in your life. Here's the question. How much pleasure did you have from that activity? I doubt you had much enjoyment, kind of the crumbly, crackly bread, the rancid taste of the peanut butter as it's scratched against your throat. I doubt this is going to be one of the great pleasure moments of your life. You didn't have much pleasure there, but you sure did have a lot of desire. You were hungry. You were famished. And you wolfed that down with tremendous passion, with appetite. And this is a critical distinction. Appetite, hunger, craving is one element functioning in the human. Pleasure is something different. Pleasure is the enjoyment, and pleasure is the hana, the benefit, the feeling that you get. And the reason why people have a lot of trouble is because they mix the two up. But the two are not the same. Desire is desire, pleasure is pleasure, and the two are vastly, vastly different. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, desire typically is not much fun at all. And the stronger the desire, the more the person becomes enslaved by it, driven by it. I have to, I need to, but it's not pleasurable. Let me give you for instance, French vanilla ice cream may be something that you enjoy. And it may even be something that you look forward to, maybe use it as a special treat for a special occasion. If you really like French vanilla ice cream, when you eat it, you will enjoy it. Crack cocaine is something that you'll not likely enjoy very much at all. Crack cocaine is almost instantly addictive. That means from the very first time you ingest it, you are chemically, physiologically addicted. You need it. You have to have it. But here's the great problem with drugs. Not only do you have to have it, the body gets used to it. You need more. And pretty soon what happens is those receptors in the brain that used to be very, very sensitive and very reactive no longer are. You still need the drug. You need more of it. And after a while, not only do you physiologically need it, but often you can't even get high. And if you can imagine a person who desperately craves, absolutely has to have something, but doesn't enjoy it, you're looking at a drug addict, often an addict to many other things. But you see, the addiction or the craving or the appetite isn't fun at all. The pleasure, first time you use crack cocaine, might have been there, and it might have been very pleasurable, it might have been the most pleasurable experience in your life. However, pleasure and desire are different. Let's take another example. If you walk in Manhattan on a February day and you see people huddled by the side of the building smoking cigarettes, and you know that they work on the 46th floor, and you know that they have to go down 46 floors to stand outside in the bitter cold to smoke that cigarette, I don't believe they're doing it for the pleasure. Now, don't get me wrong. If you smoke, it could well be that at one time, and maybe even now, it is pleasurable for you to smoke. But what's driving that behavior is not the pleasure. It's not the nicotine rush is just so pleasurable. there's a craving, there's an appetite, there are withdrawal symptoms. I need it. I have to have it. And that feeling is not fun at all. And this distinction is not so obvious if you listen to the way people describe what they do, when they do it, and why they do it. Many people who are proclaimed hedonists are not hedonists at all. I'm into pleasure. No, you're not. You're a primitive person who's driven by lust, by desire, and you have no impulse control. You've never worked on yourself. And all you have to do is ask our connoisseur to walk down Fifth Avenue in the summer and not ogle, not gawk, not look at every woman who passes by. I know you're only into pleasure for pleasure's sake. Why is it that you can't control yourself? And the answer is you're not into pleasure. You're a baltaiva. You've given in and given in and given in, and that appetite, the craving, the desire grew and grew, and you're no longer in control of yourself. And because you're no longer in control of yourself, you have to do what you do. But don't tell me you're into pleasure. And don't tell me you find the activity so pleasurable and that's why you pursue it. Much like an addict who needs, much like even a person who smokes cigarettes, craves it. You have various things that you train yourself in and you become addicted or just craving it or just have a very strong appetite. And interestingly enough, it's not only with drugs. We're supposed to eat the Korban Pesach ala sova. We're supposed to eat the avikoman. We eat it satisfied. But you have to be careful that it's not achila gasa. It can't be sort of past the point of satiation. But Tosfos says something very interesting. If you eat it when you're fully sated, you eat the afikomen, you eat the Korban Pesach when you're fully sated, you're still yotze, it's still achila. But he says there's something called achila gasa, when you're so filled, you're just stuffed to the utmost. And at that point, if food is kotzalav, is this disgusting, he says you could eat in that state on Yom Kippur and you're not chayav. You know why? You derive no benefit, no hano, no pleasure from the food. You're so stuffed. There's just no room whatsoever that when you put that last morsel down your throat, there's no benefit, no enjoyment. And if you ate that on Yom Kippur, you would not be chayav. You didn't do anything. Here's the question. So why would you eat? If you're so stuffed, there's no room. There's literally no room left. To the extent that you don't enjoy the food anymore, why in the world would you eat it? And the answer is that it's not that difficult to understand how you could still have an appetite long after there's no room left in your stomach. You could still be hungry, grazing, looking for more to eat when you just ate a huge meal. Because again, cravings, appetites, hungers are things that increase with use, decrease when you control them, but if you're not careful, they become stronger and stronger, and eventually they get to a point where they make no sense. And eventually they could get to a point where they control you and you don't control them. Ibn Ezra explains why a nazir is considered a nazir. A nazir is a man who makes a vow not to drink wine. He separates himself from physical pleasures for a certain amount of time. He's called a nazir, explains the Ibn Ezra, because he wears a crown. What do you mean a crown? A crown because he has freed himself from desire, from appetites. Every other human being is controlled by cravings, by hungers. This man is free. He's done something remarkable. He's freed himself from the drives. A free man wears a crown. And that concept is something that in our modern world is a bit misunderstood. Would you like to know the answer to the Torah's approach to pleasure? Mesilas Yesharim tells us very clearly, pleasures are tools to be used for a very particular purpose. So a person should have nachas ruach, yeshiva das. They're aids, they're things that help you. You need a certain amount of just relaxation, a certain amount of serenity, a certain amount of tranquility. Pleasures are there to serve a very particular purpose. When you use them as tools, They help you. They make you more relaxed, happier, more fulfilled. As a person, we need certain things. You need a certain level of comfort. You need a certain level of housing. You need a certain level of clothing. These are things that you need. And pleasures of the world were created for one particular purpose, as an azer and a siyua, as an aid and as an assist in your serving Hashem. And when you use them in that way, they're pleasurable, they're enjoyable, they serve their purpose, and not only aren't they damaging, they're considered a mitzvah. Let's take a couple of interesting examples. Oneg Shabbos. It is a mitzvah to eat delicious food on Shabbos. It's a mitzvah to wear beautiful clothing on Shabbos. Everything you do on Shabbos should be different, should be special, and you're supposed to enjoy that activity. And don't tell me it's just you and I, common people. Beis Shammai would go Monday to the shuk, and he'd find an animal. Shammai Hazakin, a tremendous Talmid Chacham, and he'd say, this is for Shabbos. The next day if he'd pass and he'd see a better one, no, not that one, put Mondays away, this one is for Shabbos. Every day he would pass, and every day he would find the best one for Shabbos. The Wednesday one would be better, then he'd go Thursday, find a better one. I want to ask you a question. Was Shammai a hedonist? Some pleasure-seeking person? He was a tremendously worked-out person, a leader of his people. What is he wasting time on such frivolous things? Better-tasting steaks, delicious, come on. That's what he should be involved in? But the answer is, when you use a pleasure properly as it's supposed to, it's kadosh, it's holy. And if a person enjoys himself on Shabbos in the right way, in the right manner, that's a mitzvah. It's not just, well, okay, you can have it, it's all right. Quite the opposite. It's kadosh, it's holy, it's proper. Let me share with you an ad that I saw that's very eye-opening. It was an ad for a vacation, and it said, some couples go for therapy. Some couples plan vacations. And that ad hit a very key point. If you go with your spouse on a vacation, and I don't mean some luxurious, very expensive vacation, but if you take time together, and the purpose of that is to bond, to connect, to create a greater attachment, that is kaddish, that's holy, it's proper, and wise couples go out regularly, wise couple plan mini vacations. But when they're doing that, the guy could be the biggest masmid in the world, but he's not opening a Gemara. He's not studying Mishnah Berurah. He's spending time with his wife, bonding, connecting, just enjoying each other's company. And that's a holy activity. It should be pleasurable, and it's also very holy. And I want to take one more step. When a husband and wife are together physically, if you read the Rishonim, Rashi in a number of places explains, it's the pleasure of the physical intimacy that helps create the connection. It's not just, well, okay, enjoy it. That pleasure from the act actually creates the connection, creates the bond, and it's not just something that, well, okay, you'll give into it. It's holy, it's proper, it's good. And this understanding that pleasures are appropriate. Hashem created every pleasure for us to enjoy them. But that's the point. And pleasures are to be used as tools, as a tool to be closer to Hashem, and as a tool to give myself just whatever. If I need a break, I need a little bit of whatever it may be. Yishuv das, nachas ruach, a certain serenity, a certain relaxed sort of sense. Used as tools, that proper, that's holy. The problem with pleasures are when you pursue pleasures for pleasure's sake. When you pursue pleasure for pleasure's sake, then what you're saying is, whatever. I'm not here for any great purpose. I don't exist to grow and accomplish. I'm just in this world, whatever. And let me enjoy myself because, hey, it's fun. What you're doing is you're missing the entire purpose of life. When you say the words, I'm a hedonist, and you set your goal as much pleasure as I humanly can have, what you're doing is you're missing the boat, you're missing the purpose of life. If you knew that this is the gym and there's a spa, if you knew that every minute of life is an opportunity to grow, to change, to become who you'll be forever, And if you knew that every single action that you're engaged in permanently etches itself into you, you wouldn't be pursuing pleasure for pleasure's sake. So you mean pleasures are wrong? No. Pleasures are proper, but they're to be used. They're tools. When you engage in them in the right way, in the right time, they're kodesh, but that's the point. It has to be the right way, the right time, and in the right manner. And that little point isn't so simple. Let me share with you one classic example. The Rambam in Hilchos Deah says, when you eat food, you should eat food because you need to be healthy, you need strength, and that should be your intention. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't enjoy your food, you should, but why am I eating? I'm eating because I need to be healthy, I need strength, I need nutrients. And what's the difference? The difference is when I come to something that I know isn't good for me, tastes delicious. It really, oh wow, I really want it, but I know it's not good for me. Do I eat it or do I not? So says the Rambam, that's almost the litmus test. When you eat something that you know is bad for you, when you eat something that's damaging to you, but you do it anyway, what you're demonstrating clearly is that you missed the boat. You're not eating to be healthy, you're not eating to be strong, you're not eating because you need nutrients, you're eating because you're much like any animal in the wild kingdom, consumed by desire, by appetite, and whatever. And the real test is if you go on the Rambam's diet. The Rambam's diet is remarkable. He says every meal, eat what you need, but stop when you're 3/4 filled. Stop when there's a quarter left. When you're 3/4 filled, that's when you stop. I'd like to share with you, if we would abide by the Rambam's rule, I guarantee we would not have weight problems. In the United States of America, there are currently a little bit of a weight epidemic, as in 65% of the country is either overweight or obese. And if you walk out in the street, you just see everyone is overweight. And despite all the knowledge of it being extraordinarily damaging to one's health, and despite all the social pressure to be slim, buff, look good, people are fat, obese, overweight. And again, it's a very simple issue. Foods should taste delicious. You should enjoy your food, but I'm eating for a purpose. And if you're really good at this, you follow the Rambam's diet and you stop at 3/4 full. Now, I want to share with you something on a personal note. I have gone on Weight Watchers a number of times together with my wife, and every time I'm on a diet, I can tell you the food never tastes as good. I just enjoy everything. The apples, the oranges, whatever I may be eating just tastes so much better. And why is that? The reason is because when you're stuffed and you're always overeating, you lose, food just doesn't taste good. You're just no longer enjoying your food. And if you say to a person who's on the Rambam diet who stops at 3/4 full, look, it's so restrictive, you have to live with such limitations, poor you must suffer, you have no pleasure. Nah. He's the guy who enjoys his food. He's the guy who actually is in control, enjoys this activity called eating, takes pleasure from it, but isn't controlled by it. And again, it's not just at that moment, because like any desire, the more you give into it, the more you allow it to control you, the stronger it becomes. The stronger and stronger until you eventually have very little control. And you'll be there eating foods that you know are bad for you, wishing you somehow could, but can't. And if I were to answer the young high school student when he says, oh, if I could be a guy, if I could be out there in public, so I have so much pleasure, I'd like to share with you, it's false, totally, completely false. It's about as much fun as being addicted to cocaine or to heroin or whatever it may be. Yes, you could go pursue any desire you want. And if you're free in that sense, you could go out there and do what you want. But that's not pleasure. What you're doing is increasing desire, constantly being hungry, and it doesn't take a lot of research to read and to be aware of the amount of people who are controlled by desire, ruled by desire. People who say the words, I have no life. They're totally, but I'm not talking about drug addicts. I'm talking about people who are ruled by desire, people who are just completely have no life. And if you are a slave, whether it be to drugs, to alcohol, to desire, to honor, to money, to fame, or to food, you are a slave. You're not a free man. And the activity itself you don't even enjoy. That is probably the greatest ironic part of it. The food itself doesn't taste as good when you're just constantly full, constantly eating. And when you actually go on a diet, you enjoy the food better. Now, is it easy? No. It takes self-control and takes discipline. But that's what we're here for, to grow, to accomplish. And if I live my life that way, it is true, it's somewhat difficult. It's not a walk in the park, but it's a beautiful life. It's controlled. I'm happy because I know I'm growing, and I enjoy the activities that I'm engaged in. It's fun. It's pleasurable. But again, pleasurable in a sensual sense. Forget the fact that you have purpose and meaning. Forget the fact that you're happy and joyful. I'm talking from a physically sensual, pleasurable aspect. You will enjoy the activities that you're involved in to a much greater extent. And again, it doesn't take a tremendous amount of research to find people who are married and are unhappy in their marriage, but not because their wife or their husband is, bothersome, but because physically they can't have pleasure from their husband or their wife, whatever it may be, because their brain is somewhere else. And much like any activity, if you use it properly and well, it's pleasurable, it's appropriate, it's proper, it's holy. Misuse it and, well, guess what? And that's the great irony. Every pleasure that Hashem created is a tool to be used. And something that helps us, something that allows us to become greater. And if you use it properly, when you're using it, not only do you enjoy it, but the pleasure itself is a mitzvah and will help you be happy here, happy in the world to come. However, there's one more little difficulty. And that is the way Hashem created us, we have appetites, we have desires. And every single pleasure has attached to it a sin. Every single pleasure that you ever will engage in has a danger to it. And because a human has been created with desire, with appetite, with hungers, and because every single pleasure that you will take has a danger that there's a sin associated with it, pleasures are things you have to be careful with. They are dangerous. Again, used properly, used in the right time, in the right way, they're appropriate, they're holy, they're good, but they are dangerous, and you have to be on guard. And if you're not sure I'm right, try the Rambam's diet. Try. Make up from now on, I'm never going to eat food that's not good for me. If it's fried, if it's too many calories, if it's just tastes delicious, but I'm not eating it. Oh, I'll have a cookie or two, but I'm not eating it. Try to sit down to every meal and just say, at 3/4 fill, I'm walking away. What you're going to find is it's not so easy because there's real desire, there's real appetite. It takes a very, very disciplined person to use pleasures properly. But when you understand that they're there for a purpose, when you understand the role, you understand the danger, you're halfway there because you recognize that they're tools to be used, and you understand their purpose, and you're on guard, and you're halfway there. However, in our world that we live in today, it becomes doubly difficult for us to use pleasures that way. And I'll explain to you why. Tiger Woods was a famous golfer, in fact, known maybe as the best golfer in all time. And he was quite a media celebrity. As a matter of fact, his name was on many, many products, Gatorade, Nike, PGA Tour, and he made a fortune of money as a celebrity endorsing products. Now, what happened was Tiger Woods, it was quite a scandal. He had an affair. And in a heartbeat, he went from celebrity to whatever. Now, that's sad. But there was an interesting spin to the story. when it became public that Tiger Woods is not this honorable, moral person, there was a tremendous loss to the companies that he had endorsed. As in PGA Tour, as in Gatorade, as in Nike, they estimate that shareholders lost about $12 billion. If you look at Gatorade and Nike alone, as soon as the scandal hit, within a week or two, those stocks dropped by 4% of their value, the equivalent of $6 billion worth of value. And why? Because shareholders knew that the brand Gatorade is damaged. Not as many people are going to drink it. Nike is now not the same Nike because their celebrity who had endorsed them is not quite who he used to be, and therefore not as many people are going to buy Nike sneakers. Now I want to make this point so you really hear what I'm saying. Up until that point, Tiger Woods was paid $100 million a year for his endorsements. He didn't just put his name on these products because he was a nice guy. He was then, and I believe even now, the highest paid athlete who would give endorsements, $100 million a year. So here's the question. These are major corporations, brilliant men at the helm of Gatorade, of Nike, and tremendous focus on advertising, on budget, on marketing the product. Why would they squander $100 million a year on this guy? Why would they throw away that money? And more than that, it's okay, the guy's not who he should have been. Why does it destroy the shares? Why does a company lose billions of dollars in sales? It makes no sense. What's it got to do with whether people do drink Gatorade, put on Nike shoes or not? I don't get it. Would you like to know the answer to this question? The answer is that marketing works. Advertising works. There's an association. When you see Tiger Woods and you look up to him as a superstar and he's drinking Gatorade, there's an association between the celebrity and the product, and suddenly you look at Gatorade a little bit differently. When Michael Jordan puts on sneakers with the Nike swoosh, suddenly, I look at them differently. And if you're not sure that it's true, just study why every single brand out there puts millions, or if not billions of dollars on selling by having a celebrity or something attached to them, because the bottom line is that it works. And the Mesilas Yesharim explains that if you see a person you respect, if you see a person you look up to, and that person extols something, what happens is you can't help but desire that thing. And let me explain exactly what I'm talking about. In Western civilization, and specifically America, there are some things that are taken seriously. However, there are few things that are taken quite as seriously as major social events. Up there, and the biggest of the biggest, is Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, the Super Bowl is bigger than big. Bigger than it is the event of the year. Super Bowl Sunday that's about as big as it gets. But I want to share with you something very, very compelling. Forget the game. Let's talk about consumption. How about the following? A week before Super Bowl Sunday, potato chip snacks, as a class, sell an additional $140 million. Unflavored nuts will sell an additional $90 million. Crackers, an additional $93 million. That means to say that sales spike in those products, salty snacks particularly, to an extent that's hard to even imagine. Now, the salty snack industry in America is pretty serious. It's currently worth $28.2 billion. But I want you to understand what $28.2 billion means. And so in potato chips alone, it's $3.25 billion snack food industry in the U.S. But that's just potato chips. However, within potato chips, there are many brands, as you well know. And they're extremely, extremely inventive, extremely creative. Lay's potato chips comes in barbecue, sour cream and onion, salt and pepper, ham flavor. Cape Cod potato chips, very, very different. Totally different texture, totally different taste. They also come in a few varieties. Sea salt and vinegar, sea salt and cracked pepper, whole grain, toasted grains, waffle cut, sea salt, and many others. Harris potato chips is also vastly different. Well, they also come in a few varieties. Old Bay, hot sauce, jalapeno, come in horseradish flavor. Now, additionally, you have Pringles. Now, don't forget, Pringles has chili cheese dog, has seaweed, cinnamon sugar, sour cream, ketchup, and, of course, don't forget Doritos. Doritos have at least 12 variations and often more. Now, each of those brands are in a fight for their life. Because you see, the entire salty snack industry is only $28 billion. But the chip part of it isn't quite that large. And what they're fighting for is market share. And what they're going to do is everything in their arsenal, everything in their power to convince you that their chip is delicious, it's flavorful. Your life just won't be the same until you try chili dog cheese nacho flavored Harris potato chips. And if it sounds comical, it's not at all. Just see the amount of money that's spent on convincing you that their stuff is delicious and you have to have it. And your life just isn't going to be the same until you get it. My friends, Coca-Cola has an advertising budget. Coca-Cola has an advertising budget of $3.4 billion. Why is that such an interesting number? Because if you take the gross domestic product of United Kingdom, of England, Greece, and Switzerland combined, it doesn't equal the advertising budget of Coca-Cola. And they are going to spend those billions of dollars on one single goal, making you thirsty for their product. And it's amazing how effective they are. And it's even interesting to hear the lines. The truth is refreshing. That's a nice line. Truth is refreshing. That's Sprite. Refreshingly uplifting. Lipton tea. Live for now. That's Pepsi. Red Bull gives you wings. That's Red Bull. And dare you ask for more? Again, Pepsi. And if you see these messages time after time after time, and we're talking not a few times a day, the average consumer will see a minimal of 1,500 advertising messages every day. And guess what? They're selling one single thing: desire, appetite, hungers. I can't quite figure out why there's such obesity in this country. I don't get it. Why are there so many people who are running around who wish they were thin, but they're not? Well, I have a little secret to tell you. Just go out there and look at a billboard, look at any media portal, look at a newspaper, look at a magazine, look online. You'll see the billions and billions of dollars spent on making you hungry and thirsty. You need it. You have to have it. You deserve it. You deserve it. You should have it. And what they're selling is hedonism. Enjoyment for enjoyment's sake, because I guarantee these products are not going to make you healthier, not going to make you happier, they're not going to make you anything but overweight. But we're bombarded with the message. And it's a bit of an issue. So I want to share with you a very simple technique that the Mesilas Yesharim says will solve any desire issues. It's not going to solve in a sense that, poof, the problem goes away. But if you want to work on it, he says the very first thing you have to do is recognize that any pleasure, no matter how pleasurable it is empty. What is it? It's a feeling. It's a little... Jack LaLanne, from a younger part of my life, used to say, a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. If you think about any pleasure, whether it be eating, whether it be anything that you do, the pleasure is so vaporous. It's so foolish. It really doesn't contain that much. And it explains in Mesilas Yesharim that's an incredibly important step to take. Why? Because it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a battle, and you have to arm yourself. The most effective way to arm yourself is to understand that what's really happening over here is they're not selling the pleasure. the pleasure is they're selling drive, desire, appetite. They're talking to your hungers. They're talking to your animal instinct. They're trying to hunger it. And the more you recognize that, and the more you understand that the pleasures aren't that deep, they're really not what you're pursuing, the more you understand what the game is, and the easier it's going to be for you to fight. And because of that, I'd like to offer you a little observation. In light of the fact that part of our goal should be to sort of debunk the pleasures that we normally pursue, let's imagine the following. Imagine that I have spent my life as one bona fide hedonist. My entire life, pleasure and pleasure. That's all I seek. That's all I desire. I am the ultimate hedonist, ultimate pleasure seeker. Nebuch, I don't have enough money. If I had money, whoa, Nebuch, I got to live with. Anyway, every day I check the newspaper. Once a week I buy the lotto. Lo and behold, I win. $365 million. Wow! My life's goal. I'm rich, and now I can live the life I always wanted. Let's go! So I set out on my life's goal of pursuit of pleasure. What do? First thing I do is I buy myself an island in the South Pacific, an entire team of butlers and waiters, and I hire a special staff for my eating. Mediterranean chef for breakfast, a French chef for lunch. For dinner, I prefer an Italian chef, and I deck it out to the ultimate, my castle on my private island, and I sit down the first day ready for the ultimate breakfast. Now, I've planned this. I'm not one of these passing sort of guys. I'm into pleasure. I want Belgian waffles, and I want it to come out at 120 degrees, crispy on the outside, very tender on the inside. I want it covered with Vermont maple syrup. No other trees but the ones that grow in Vermont have that sort of flavory, sort of smoky and sweet taste. I want it topped by whipped cream from Hereford cows, because only their cream has the consistency I like. I got it planned out, and the chef prepares it. A white glove waiter brings the tray, of course covered, because it has to come off the griddle and stay at that temperature, lays it down in front of me. I take my knife, my fork, he takes off the cover, and I'm now ready. Let's go. I cut it open. I dig in, and I take my first bite. Oh my goodness, crispy, but tender. The Hereford cow, I can taste the Vermont maple syrup. It's incredible. It's amazing. My palate is filled. Wow. The second bite, not much different. Wow. The intensity, the different flavors, the nuances. It's perfect. And the third bite's better still, because now I get to taste even the extra little sweetness, and I get to taste the extra little aroma that I didn't notice the first time around. And very quickly, I learn the first rule of pleasure. And the first rule of pleasure is that every pleasure is oversold and under-delivered. Because the food tastes good, but it isn't, wow! It really isn't the most amazing and most sensual experience I've ever had. I'm just so carried away, I can't breathe. It tastes good, but come on, let's not get crazy. Every single pleasure is hyped like it's the best thing in the world. It's like the most amazing, and you have it, it's good, okay, I'm not saying, but it's just not quite what you described. And the rule in marketing is you sell the sizzle, not the steak. Wow. It looks so glorious. It looks so astonishing. It's got to be better than better. It's amazing. And when you have it, it's okay. But the first rule of pleasure is that every pleasure is overpromised and underdelivered. It never lives up to quite what it should be. But listen, I am a hedonist. I am a pleasure seeker. I am not giving up now. After I finish my second helping, I say to the waiter, please bring me my Rocky Road ice cream. Now, again, I've directed my chef. I only have not Belgian chocolate from Holland, because it has a different flavor. Those cocoa beans came from Colombia, lightly roasted. My Rocky Road ice cream is the ultimate, covered by a very thin layer of chocolate that creates that shell. On top of that, whipped cream, and then very lightly drizzled peanut butter. But the peanut butter has to be at 105 degrees, so it gently melts, doesn't melt the ice cream, but just gently melts down. And waiter brings it out, and I take a look. 5 huge globs, the most delicious thing I've ever seen. And I take the spoon, and wow, it is great. And the second, and the third, and the fourth, and then I discover the second rule of pleasure. And that is I'm stuffed. I just had 2 huge helpings of waffles, and there are 5 globs of ice cream. I ate one, I ate a second, but there's just no more room in my stomach. And I discovered the second rule of pleasure, and the second rule of pleasure is every pleasure has a limit. It may be 20 minutes, maybe an hour, but then it's over, done, finished, and there's nothing more. You're stuffed, you're tired, whatever it may be, every pleasure has a limit. It doesn't last 24 hours, it doesn't last 3 weeks. It has a limited shelf life, and then it's done. Well, look, I spent my whole life dreaming about being a pleasure seeker. I am not giving up now. And so I set out, and I ATV up the pyramids. I go bungee cord jumping off the Eiffel Tower. Now, after a couple of weeks of this stuff, I'm kind of getting a little bit bored, to be honest with you, and it's kind of hard to enjoy this stuff. But hey, I am a major pleasure seeker, and I am not giving up now. And I'm not going to stop because this is my life, and I'm going to do it. And so I go on another one, and finally the ultimate Bermuda vacation, and I come back after a week. And after a week, you ask me how it was, and I say, wow, it was astonishing. The crystal clear blue water, the beautiful, beautiful sun. I had an amazing time. And then I discover the 4th rule of pleasure. The 4th rule of pleasure is I had a good time. I had pleasure, but now there's nothing left. Any pleasure that you will find under the sun has a limit, has a shelf life, then it's done, and there's nothing left of it. Memories, maybe, but you don't keep it. The first rule of pleasure is every pleasure looks wow, but it's way, way overpromised and way underdelivered. And the second rule is that every pleasure has a limit. 20 minutes, an hour. How long can you eat? How long can you engage in things? And that's it. The third rule of pleasure is that there's the first time, that's the best time, and there's only one first time. But the 4th rule of pleasure is the most important one, and that one is that every pleasure is done, finished, and then there's nothing left. You went on that unbelievable vacation to Puerto Rico. You now have sunburn from sitting in the sun too long. You now have $3,000 of credit card debt, but the pleasure is gone. And even if it's appropriate, and even if it's right. But you see, what do these things point out? One simple point, exactly what the Mesilas Yesharim says. Pleasures as tools to be used are perfect. Hashem created pleasures as a part of my life to aid me, to help me. In that role, they make sense. In that role, they're not supposed to be long-lasting. They're supposed to be things that help me, make it easier, give me a sense of nachas ruach, yeshiva das, a certain serenity, certain tranquility. I enjoy them. I'm supposed to enjoy them. But they're supposed to be short-lived, quickly passing, and they're not significant. But it's not just that they're not significant in the sense that I'm not bigger, I'm not smarter, I'm not greater. They're not significant in the sense that they're vaporous. They're just very, very small. And when you realize that, you've won half the battle. Because it's much harder to convince you that Lay's potato chips will change your life. Just buy one can of Pringles and you'll know what real pleasure is. It's harder to fall for it. It's still a battle, but you're way ahead of the game, and you have to know that Hashem wants us to enjoy. Hashem created every pleasure for a specific purpose, and used in that way, they're appropriate, they're perfect, they serve their purpose. But when you use them for a purpose they weren't created for, guess what? It doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's not what your Creator created them for. Every pleasure that Hashem made is something to be used, but it's part of a picture. I'm put here to grow, to accomplish. The pleasures of the world are tools to be used to help me, to aid me. Are they good? Are they bad? The answer is they're perfect if you use them as you're supposed to. It's when you abuse them, not only don't you enjoy them, but that's when you start increasing desire and appetite and hunger. And before you know it, you become addicted. And again, addiction could be to alcohol, it could be to drugs, it could be to desire, it could be to fame, it could be to money, it could be to food. But it's not fun. The Nazir wears the crown. He's the man who's free because everyone else is ruled by desire. And when you understand that pleasure and desire are very, very different, they're very, very apart. It is true that when you have desire for something, you might have more pleasure, but that's only when you use it as you're supposed to, in the right way, in the right time. Then the desire doesn't grow, it doesn't consume you, the pleasure you enjoy. But you have to understand there's pleasure and there's desire. What the Torah warns us about is becoming a slave. And every pleasure has a certain danger, and we by nature are drawn to them. You have to use them properly, in moderation, and you have to control things, but that's the ultimate growth of the person. When a person uses the world that way, obviously they gain their world to come. But they're far more happier in this world. Far more happier because they're balanced, they have purpose, they have meaning, there's joy in their life. But much more than that, they will have more pleasure in this world. Because when you eat in moderation, when you use the world as you're supposed to, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's as Hashem created it. And I want to close with one last observation. It was 1976, and the crime of the century took place. There was a team of bank robbers, and they prepared for weeks, probably for months. Basically, it was in Paris. They had found a bank was right over a large sewer system that was running on the street. And they dug 26 feet through the concrete. They took rafts in the actual sewer, and they brought in the equipment. They waited for a 3-day holiday so they'd have plenty of time. They dug through right into the bank, into the vault. And they found themselves in the vault, and they spent 3 days there breaking into safe deposit boxes, stealing a king's ransom worth of jewelry, gold bars, cash, tremendous, tremendous value, and they escaped and were not found. Monday morning, when the people opened the bank and they actually found the vault sealed, meaning these guys were real clever, they sealed the vault from the inside so that the people couldn't get in even. Anyway, they broke into the vault, and when the director saw what was happening, 1/3 of the safety deposit boxes were broken into. And again, it's just an amazing amount of wealth was stolen. But what was interesting to note was that scattered throughout the vault were sandwiches, snacks, bottles of wine. These guys were partying. They were having a good time over there. They took time to drink wine. They took time to eat. They took time, and it looked like they're having a real party. In any case, I told the story over to a certain person, and that person turned to me and said, "Wow, what fools they were. What idiot drinking wine. Don't they know there's more safety deposit boxes? They could have broken into 2/3. They could have taken twice as much money. Why'd they waste time with the sandwiches and the feast and the wine? They're nuts. What was their problem?" And I said to this person, that's exactly why I told you this story. Do you know why they drank wine? Do you know why they brought sandwiches? You know why they relaxed? Because they were professionals. And they knew that if you push yourself too much, over 3 days you're going to make a mistake and you're going to get caught. But because they were pros, they knew they had to stay relaxed. They had to stay healthy. They had to stay in a good mood, because you can't work for 3 days straight, 24 hour after 24 hours, without making a mistake and without getting caught. The reason why they got away is because they were brilliant. And the reason why I shared that story with that person was because that was exactly his problem. He was pushing himself so much, would never enjoy things, would never just chill, because he recognized why he's here, what he's put on a planet for, and he pushed himself so much that, guess what? He wasn't effective at all. And you have to understand that Hashem wants us to be happy in this world, not for this world's purpose, But number one, Hashem is a meitiv, Hashem is a giver. But number two, because it's an incredibly integral part of being a successful human being. We're here to grow, to accomplish. Pleasures have a very particular purpose, to give you that serenity, that tranquility, that yishuv hadas that you need. And if you're too frum to take pleasures, you're totally missing the boat. If you use pleasures for their intended purpose, they're proper, they're holy. Onig Shabbos is Kaddish. Simchas Yom Tov, if you enjoy Yom Tov, that's a holy endeavor. Using pleasures as you're supposed to are proper, they're appropriate, they're very much integral to the religion, and they help you serve your purpose in this world, help you grow, but you have to understand the balance. Used as tools, controlled, they're Kaddish, they're holy, go too far and they're misused, but when you have that balance, you grow, you accomplish, obviously you gain your world to come, but you enjoy this world, you're happy, you're joy-filled, and on a physical level, you enjoy the things you do. You live an exalted life.